Hello, Chiswick.
Okay, I think we're live.
Who are you?
Hello, everybody. My name's Ian Trowbridge. I'm a member of the Blossom Day W4 committee. We were hoping to put on an event last year and this year. I'm joined this afternoon by a colleague, Andy Murray. He's from the Grove Park Group. He's the chair of the Grove Park Group. And together we're going to be presenting to you the virtual Blossom Day. Unfortunately, the blossom this year is being a little bit tardy in coming out. So the photographs you see behind us are unfortunately not a live outside broadcast, but they're from last year.
But something to look forward to, because this is going to be the week in which you'll be able to see that. So if there's anyone who hasn't yet enjoyed the blossom, hopefully this will be your impetus to go out in a couple of days' time and marvel, because it really is one of the highlights of living in Chiswick and W4 is the amazing display of blossom in Staveley Road. So without more ado, Ian will introduce somebody quite important.
Yes, I had the pleasure of speaking to the Mayor of London Borough of Hounslow, Councillor Tony Lukey, in the week. He'd been looking forward to coming and joining us in our celebrations outdoors in the road, but of course in the circumstances. But he wanted to record a message for us, so we managed to put together a little bit of video of him speaking about the blossom and about the day and about his role in it.
Hello, I'm Councillor Tony Lukey. I'm the Mayor of the London Borough of Hounslow, and I'm speaking to you as much as I would like to be speaking to you from Staveley Road. I'm here in the Mayor's Parlour at Hounslow House, Bath Road, Hounslow. I do enjoy coming to Chiswick. I'm a trustee of Chiswick House and Gardens as well, so I'm familiar with the area and have family very close by there. Burlington Lane and Chiswick High Road. So, this is an unusual event. I'd rather be surrounded by folk and looking at the lovely Prunus Kansan. It's always been a destination at this time of the year, down at that part of Chiswick, South Chiswick, to look at the trees and enjoy the trees. And it was a great privilege to be with the Blossom Day people back early December. I think it was the 3rd of December when they said, come down and plant a tree down by the V2 memorial, that new tree there. Come down and plant a tree. And I feel a bit embarrassed about these things, but I did dress up as I did today. And I'm really glad that it wasn't just me. It was a whole community there on Staveley, planting this tree, and with Jim and Carol from Hounslow Highways, who they dug the hole, put the stick there and the tree, and we all contributed. And fair play to Sally, Malin, and crew who got me down there and helped me get my shoes dirty, because it was quite a day. Weather-wise, but there's about 15-20 people there. My friends, Councillor Guy Lambert there, Councillor Sam Hearn, Councillor Gabriella Giles were in attendance too. I've been there tail end of March. That tree has settled in there. It's taken, and I think by the time you start watching this, there'll be plenty of blossom trying to burst out, and it's always a pleasure to see this. And it's not just that tree that we planted in December, but across the London Borough of Hounslow, there's been plenty of specimens planted. If you go down to Chiswick Back Common, for example, I think we planted something like the Parks team, Lambton Green Space planted about 30 trees. Some of them really, some of them a great variety. Even in my local park, which I pay a lot of attention to, Thornbury Park in Isleworth, we planted seven elms, and no one's planted elms for ages. I'll say no one, but elms have not been planted for ages, and then it's brilliant that they're in there, and we planted. We also just recently planted, as they have done down at Harvard Hill. We planted a hedge, and we've done about 900 hawthorn whips. So look, that's a theme, if you like, and that's a theme. All right, we're talking about your cherry trees, but it's about what we can do with trees, and we don't plant them for ourselves. We plant them for the future. Long may they flourish. And it's a shame that we didn't have the party last year. It's a shame we didn't have the party this year. I've been the mayor for 2 years, and all I've been able to do is come down and plant a tree. But it would have been good to, because I know how you throw a party down that part of the world. So good luck to everybody there. Good luck to Mother Nature and the trees. But thank you everybody for looking after them. And I see that you look after them. It's not just about watching; it's about looking after the tree pits. And when you go down there, in some tree pits, you've got people have planted bulbs and similar, and that's a pleasure to see, because that means you're paying attention. And I know people say, oh yeah, well, we pay council tax, and the council should be looking after them. There are thousands of trees, and I think this last year we planted nearly 5,000 trees around the borough at different stages of growth. But we planted loads. I don't think anyone can go around there in this time of austerity. So as I've come out of this role as mayor, I've just been amazed, particularly in the last year, how people have looked after each other, and how gardening and flowers and growing does make a difference. So look, I think that might be enough from me. I do talk a lot, I know that, but I hope this is I hope I've by dressing up, shame I couldn't get a haircut, but by dressing up, I've brought it's as if I've been there today, down in that part of Westport. And I wish you all the best for the rest of 2021 and for a fantastic 2022. And if you do have an event and you do invite the mayor, the next mayor of the London Borough of Hounslow, don't worry about them yet. They're not going to be mayor for another month or so. But if you do invite them, you've got my number, got my email. Please let me know too. And I'll be happy to attend and share a glass of cheer with you. Thank you very much.
Some very nice words there from Tony Lukey, the current mayor of Hounslow, who very kindly came down to plant the most recent tree in inclement weather. And obviously, we must make sure to get him back. That was extremely uplifting thoughts from him there. Now, Ian, we know that the blossom isn't totally out, but you were out. Even so, you were out in this morning's sunshine, were you not?
I was briefly. Yes, the sun did come out this morning. It was bright, but it was still a little cold. But I've got a sort of status report of what the blossom looks like today. So it's just a little short bit of video here to show you what we can actually see at the moment.
And there you go. We're not entirely live, or we're live. Ian and myself are live. And if anyone's watching this, don't rush off to Staveley Road to see the event, because we are the event. And the live part of it is mostly us, plus a couple of other things. But that's pretty much live. That was at 9:30 this morning. Ian dashed out with his super cam, and that was the super cam report. And Ian, we have now another illustrious introduction, do we not?
We do. We have Sally Malin from Staveley Road, who was the driving force behind the Blossom Day, and the driving force behind looking after the trees and getting the whole street behind her. She's again, I was able to catch up with her in the week, and she's done a recorded piece introducing the street and the trees and the work that's been done.
Well, I have known and loved the cherry blossom trees on Staveley Road literally all my life. My early years, we lived with my grandparents in Kew Gardens, and my grandmother used to walk me and my cousins round to Chiswick House, and we always came past the blossom. Then later on, my father lived on the road, so I was able to see the trees then. And 10 years ago, we moved back to Chiswick, and I was delighted to be back close to the trees, but became increasingly concerned, really, about the state that they were in. Many of them had quite extensive trunk damage, which was caused both by council mowers coming in too close when operating under great pressure of time, and also just kind of wear and tear. So although the trees were still beautiful, they were starting to look rather threadbare and imperiled. And I started to think, well, is there something that we could do about this? And what I did first was just to put a letter through all the neighbours' doors on Staveley Road and round through into the neighbouring estate, and what I to ask if people would be interested in both celebrating our wonderful trees, but also in helping to preserve them so that future generations can have something to celebrate too. So I was delighted when so many neighbours came back and said, yes, they would love to celebrate our beautiful trees, and they would like to be involved in helping to preserve them. So that was how we first had the idea of setting up Blossom Day W4. And we now have a little steering group of residents who live in and around Staveley Road to guide the work. And I guess some of the most important aspects of the work have been, firstly, to take stock on the state of the trees. So we had an independent survey commissioned which confirmed what we'd feared, that a number of the trees were at risk because of damage to the trunks, and which proposed that the answer to giving the trees a better chance was to reinstate tree pits around them, a sort of cordon sanitaire, so that the mowers could see when working at speed the don't go any further line, and also I think to sort of discourage dog walkers from thinking of the trees as dog toilets, and to improve the visibility of the trees. So we started doing the tree pits ourselves, quite rapidly realised that this is quite a big undertaking, And I should say it's one that's not covered in the council's contract with Hounslow Highways. So it was work that if we didn't do it, wouldn't get done. And we were really fortunate that the good Jim came to our rescue and have come out on a number of occasions to help us restore and then maintain the tree pits. So that was kind of thing number one. Thing number two was to get into a positive dialogue with the council and with Hounslow Highways so we could all work together, because we have a shared goal of wanting the trees to survive and thrive. We then identified with Hounslow Highways where there were gaps which needed to be filled, and a number of saplings have been planted over the last 15 months or so, so that we now have 99 trees on Staveley Road, which is fantastic. And we were concerned also that it wasn't just a question of planting the saplings, because in our increasingly hot, dry summers, many saplings fail for lack of regular, consistent water. So we have been really pleased to pilot for the borough a system of tree champions, residents who from that initial contact had indicated their interest in helping to maintain the trees, volunteered to water new saplings close to them. And so this has meant that our saplings actually are doing really, really well. And I understand that's a model that the council is now adopting elsewhere in the borough. So that's all really on the preservation, conservation side. What about celebration? Well, back in the pre-pandemic era, so back in winter 2019-20, our steering group, working with local residents, was very busy planning a wonderful Blossom Day festival for April 2020. But unfortunately, as we now all know, that was not to be. One celebratory aspect of Blossom Day that we did manage to carry through last year, and which I'm delighted we've built on this year, is the Blossom Day W4 haiku and poem competition for children and young people. And it's been really fantastic to see how this has grown. Last year, we had a strong field of poems, and we had a number of fantastic prize winners whose poems are on our website. This year, we had an even larger number with over 50 entries from local children and local schools. And the competition gives our young people an opportunity to write about blossom, about spring, about climate change. And we've had a fantastic response, and it's actually returning to the theme of across the generations. To me, it's very inspiring to see how much our children and young people also love the blossom and are passionately concerned about our environment. So I guess in conclusion, for me, what I've come to realise on this little journey through my life and returning to Staveley Road is that the trees have helped us to create a community of concern on Staveley Road so that we can help to sustain the trees, just as they, through everything, since they were first planted in 1932, they have sustained us, the quality of our air and the beauty of our local environment.
Some very nice words there from Sally Malin, very much the coordinator of the driving force of the the Blossom Day W4 celebrations. And as she said, sadly, there isn't a live event that would have been today, and fingers crossed that there can be next year. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, haiku, poetry, that sounds good. I like a bit of poetry, but is there anything I can sing along to? I wonder if there could be a little bit of a tune. Ian, you've got a tune up your sleeve for us, have you not?
I do indeed. Here's something that I was fairly intimately involved with producing. Last year, we'd planned to have a whole musical extravaganza on the Blossom Day. Several bands lined up. Unfortunately, of course, that fell by the wayside. But here's something that we put together, a song we would have played on the day, but we set it to some pictures from the street last year.
Blossom, smile, some sunshine down my way. Lately I've been lonesome. Blossom, it's been much too long a day. It seems my dreams have frozen, melt my cares away. Well, send the sunshine down my way whenever you call my name. And I know what you mean to say to me, girl, it's all the same. Blossom, there's an empty road behind. Sit you down beside me. Blossom, there's a sweet dream on my mind. There's a song inside me. Take these chains away. Yeah, send the sunshine down my way whenever you call my name. And I know what you mean to say to me, girl, it's all the same. Blossom, smile, some sunshine down my way. Lately I've been lonesome. Blossom, it's been much too long a day. Seems my dreams have frozen, melt my cares away. La 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 la.
There you go. And as you saw on the screen, that was a James Taylor song called Blossom, which does in fact feature Ian and myself. But we changed the name of the group because we decided not to be called Begum in future. And more on that, pop fans, later in the show. That Staveley Road itself, if you're watching this from around the world, as I'm sure many people are, a lot of people are familiar with the A4, Chiswick, the river, Chiswick High Road, obviously, and Chiswick House, which has been around a long time. But Staveley Road itself actually is a relatively recent addition to the topography of the region. And it's the road that runs east-west directly south of Chiswick High Road. And we have a little film prepared by Daniel Goldsmith, also on the Blossom Day W4 committee, that tells you a little bit about the story of the road. the Staveley Road story by Daniel Goldsmith. Thanks very much, Daniel, for that little film. Now, the name of Chiswick is very often synonymous with cherry blossom, and not just to do with Staveley Road. And Ian, I think we've got something that can shine a little illumination on that, haven't we?
Yes, indeed. The name cherry blossom is very well known because of the boot polish, the shoe polish. I remember using that as a child. But there are all sorts of stories and all sorts of histories about this connection between the trees in Staveley Road and the boot polish and the name and so forth. And it's quite a complicated story, but we've done our best to put together a little piece here which can hopefully help to explain the connection, or almost the lack of connection, and to sort of put things into the correct historical perspective.
Which came first, the polish or the trees? For some time there has been speculation that cherry blossom shoe polish, formerly manufactured in Duke's Meadows, Chiswick, was named after the famous Staveley Road cherry trees. Actually, cherry blossom polish preceded the Staveley Road plantings by some 26 years, but it's likely that the polish was the inspiration for the choice of tree. According to the Chiswick and Brentford Times of 1971, the famous cherry trees in Staveley Road were planted in 1932, following the building of the street's houses in 1929. The planting was supervised by the foreman at Chiswick House grounds to commemorate the borough of Brentford and Chiswick having been granted its charter. The suggestion to plant cherry trees came from Councillor Curtis, who persuaded the council that flowering cherries, the ornamental Prunus kanzan, a variant of the white Oshima cherry, were the most suitable trees for the road. But to see why cherry blossom would have been synonymous with Chiswick and Grove Park by the 1930s, we need to look back at the long and illustrious history of the Chiswick Soap Company and its founders, Dan and Charles Mason. Round about 1886, brothers Dan and Charles Mason set up a small soap factory at the junction of Hogarth Lane and Burlington Gardens. Manufacturing soft soap and polish for both furniture and metal, by 1900 the business had the name the Chiswick Soap Company. In 1905, seeking to make use of the many 5-inch circular pieces of tin plate created as the byproduct of their other activities, the Masons turned to using smaller tins and looked for a product to put in them. They wanted to sell a polish for use on boots and shoes which wouldn't rub off onto clothing in the way that the existing blacking did. A.T. Brooks, who joined the Chiswick Soap Company in June 1904, noted that floral names played a prominent part in those days in this line of business. There was red poppy and primrose soft soaps, forget-me-not furniture polish, buttercup metal polish, and finally cherry blossom boot polish. With imaginative marketing, including participation at the 1908 Franco-British exhibition at the White City, cherry blossom boot polish became a huge success. This ultimately led to the formation of a separate company under the name Chiswick Polish Company Limited, with Dan Mason as chairman. Dan and Charles Mason were philanthropic employers, establishing a girls' club in 1915, a 5-day working week in 1918, a pension scheme in 1923, and in 1925 employees were presented with a 10-acre sports ground, Duke's Meadows, which included a pavilion with changing rooms and a tea room. Sadly, Dan Mason died in 1928, followed by Charles the following year. But the company thrived, including its 1929 amalgamation with the Nugget Polish Company Limited and a name change to Chiswick Products Limited. In 1930, 50 semi-detached houses were built for the workforce in Staveley Gardens, close to the firm's printing works and a stone's throw from the east end of Staveley Road, so it is entirely likely that by 1932 the area south and southeast of Chiswick House was synonymous with the name of cherry blossom shoe polish. It is widely rumoured that both Queen Mary and the Queen Mother visited Staveley Road to see the cherry trees. We know from Queen Mary's biography by James Pope Hennessy that Edward VII, as Prince of Wales, leased Chiswick House. George Wales, the future King George V, tended a small garden plot there and played with Mary Tech, who would later become his wife, Queen Mary. She in turn was a frequent visitor to Chiswick House and is presumed to have enjoyed the cherry blossom. So it's plausible that she and her daughter-in-law, the Queen Mother, made detours to see the cherry trees in Staveley Road, as Chiswick is on the direct route from Buckingham Palace to Windsor Castle. The royal household have advised that the royal archives contain no reference to either Queen Mary or to Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, visiting, but they also said that if these were private visits, they are unlikely to have been recorded. In more modern times, Grangers of Derbyshire acquired the Cherry Blossom brand name and have since continued product development and innovation, modernising the brand and image in the UK. Reckitt Benckiser, India, still hold the rights to the Cherry Blossom brand in Asia and manufacture, market and sell the Cherry Blossom brand in India and Pakistan. So the image of Cherry Blossom, started by the Mason brothers in Chiswick, maintains its appeal all around the globe today. So there you go, another reason to shine your shoes. Keep your shoes shiny with Cherry Blossom and keep a personal memorial to the Cherry Blossom of Chiswick while you're doing it. With apologies for when I did the voiceover, I actually read our script wrong and I put the address wrong of the factory, which I'm sure local historians will be throwing stuff at the screen for it. So apologies for that. Now, similarly, local people, they're aware of the Cherry Blossom, but it only comes once a year. But there is something else in Staveley Road that is permanent and is a sad but moving memorial to really an epoch-making event that happened in 1944. And we've got a little film about that. Ian, if you want to introduce it.
Yes, it's many people coming down, walking down Staveley Road can't help but see the electricity substation, and in front of it a small black memorial, and that memorial commemorates the first V2 rocket that landed on Britain, fired from the Netherlands. We've put together, with the help of quite a number of people, including ex-councillor, ex-Lord Mayor Paul Lynch, we put together the story of the V2 and its connection with Chiswick.
In the evening of the 8th of September 1944, Tony Simpson set off from his home in Chesterfield Road to cycle through Chiswick House on his way for a swim at the baths in Edensor Road. Suddenly, out of the sky arrived raindrops the size of pennies, so, abandoning his plan to swim, he left the park by the Staveley Road gate and turned right, heading for home. A few seconds later, there came the largest explosion he had ever heard. He turned to see a column of black smoke reaching several hundred feet high, followed swiftly by bricks, tiles, and other debris cascading through the air around him. As the dust settled, the nature of the devastation became apparent. A huge hole, 36 feet across and 8 feet deep, had appeared in Staveley Road. The fronts of many houses on both sides of the road had disappeared, and many more were damaged. Stunned members of the public who gathered to take stock and start the search for survivors were told that a gas main had exploded. It wasn't until 2 months later that the government finally admitted that this was no gas explosion. It was Germany's terrifying new secret weapon, the V2 rocket, the very first of which had landed on Staveley Road in Chiswick. Britain had learned how to defend itself against the previous V-series flying bomb, the V1, commonly known as the Doodlebug because of its characteristic buzzing sound in flight. This replacement for the V1 was an entirely new invention. Using jet technology, the V2 flew faster than the speed of sound, so the first anyone knew of its existence was its explosion. It was also far more destructive than the V1. Around Staveley Road, 3 people died and 22 were injured, 38 houses were demolished or rendered uninhabitable, while a further 516 were damaged. And Trevor Jordan, a Chiswick resident whose family home had been damaged by bombs in 1940, reported hearing the explosion from his family's new location, Stanmore, Middlesex, 8.5 miles away. Former Chiswick Riverside councillor and former mayor of Hounslow, Paul Lynch, was invited to unveil a memorial to the V2 rocket.
I'm Paul Lynch, and as the then councillor for Chiswick Riverside, I spoke at the unveiling of the memorial to a V2 rocket in Staveley Road in September 2004. It was the 60th anniversary. The project was a joint effort between the Brentford and Chiswick Local History Society and the Battlefield Trust. My speech focused on the slave labourers who suffered and died horribly to construct these foul weapons, and the squalor of perverting science in the cause of such horror. The people watching joined me in giving the sign that Winston Churchill made so famous. In memory of the forced labourers, we raised 2 fingers to war and to violence. With us that day was Jos Borsum, president of the V2 Foundation of the Netherlands. And months later, I joined him and Wassenaar Town Council at the unveiling of their own memorial.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the launch of the first V2?
There were 2 rockets launched on September the 8th from Wassenaar. The whole neighbourhood was blocked off for hours beforehand. And at 4 p.m., people saw the strange cylinder-like objects arrive, each about 42 feet high, with pointed nose cones and metal fin-like tail wings, transported on special trailers. At 6:35 p.m., onlookers heard what they described as a thundering, deafening, roaring sound combined with a fearful high howling noise, and the 2 rockets were launched within seconds of each other. Only 7 minutes later, the first landed in Chiswick and the second in Epping.
Between September 1944 and March 1945, more than 1,000 missiles were fired from different locations around The Hague. Many times V2 motors failed and the rockets came down and built up parts of The Hague with disastrous consequences for local residents. Meanwhile, the Allies carried out regular bombing raids on rocket supply routes, launch sites, and the depots where the weapons were believed to be stored, increasing the collateral damage of this terrifying weapon. British Bomber Command also attacked the Rocket Research Centre at Peenemünde on the Baltic coast of Germany, which cost 40 aircraft and the lives of more than 240 airmen. Can you tell us a little about the V2's origins in Peenemünde, Germany?
The German Army Research Centre was in Peenemünde in Germany on the Baltic coast, where by 1941, Werner von Braun was developing the technology essential to the success of the new rockets. The V2 was the first man-made object to leave the Earth's atmosphere. It was actually the start of space travel. By September 1943, the V2 development was practically complete. Hitler authorized its deployment. It's interesting to think that development of the V1 and V2 cost the equivalent of $40 billion in modern money. This is 50% more than the Manhattan Project that produced the atomic bomb. On the 8th of May, 2005, I represented Chiswick at a ceremony marking the end of World War II by the federal state of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. It was at Peenemünde Museum. The Minister of Culture, the Mayor of Peenemünde, and our group from Chiswick, as a mark of reconciliation, planted a cherry tree, chosen precisely because of the trees at the point of impact in Staveley Road. And we also presented to them an archive album of images and memories about the V2 blast in Chiswick.
The image of the cherry tree being planted in Peenemünde brings us full circle, because Staveley Road had been laid out with the newly fashionable ornamental cherry tree Prunus canzan in 1932. Astonishingly, some of the cherry trees closest to the blast, which hit number 5 Staveley Road, survived the attack, including one outside number 1 Staveley Road, which sustained a crack in its trunk, the repair of which with concrete of all things can be seen today. When the road was rebuilt after the war, new cherry trees were planted to replace those destroyed by the V2. A guide to the extent of the crater caused by the rocket blast is indicated by the difference in girth between the contemporary trees and those more recently planted. The memorial on the site of the blast in Staveley Road commemorates the deaths of Rosemary Clark, who died at number 1, Mrs. Ada Harrison at number 3, and sapper Bernard Browning, killed while walking from his family's home in Elmwood Road towards Chiswick Station on the way to visit his girlfriend. More than 300 people watched the Mayor of Hounslow unveil the Black Granite Memorial in an event organised by the Brentford and Chiswick Local History Society and the Battlefields Trust, supported by a lottery grant from the Homefront Recall organisation. An album of details and memorabilia of the Chiswick V2 was presented to Councillor Paul Lynch by the Brentford and Chiswick Local History Society in 2006. Similar albums were presented to the Peenemünde Museum, the Mayor of Wassenaar, the Imperial War Museum, and the Local Studies Collection at Chiswick Library. With there you are, the V2 story, which stretches much further than just a simple wartime explosion story. There's a whole other element to it, and interesting to see that the symbol of cherry trees maintains a perspective about how we live, the importance of not forgetting war and what a terrible destructive force it is, and as a positive force to link us all together. So many thanks to former councillor and Mayor Paul Lynch there for his reminiscences and his help with that, and also Val Bott and James Wisdom of the Brentford and Chiswick Local History Society, and Scott McKinley of the Battlefields Trust, whose research and photographs were the basis for that script and film. And we're staying with the link to Japan, I think.
Well, we're starting to create a link to Japan, perhaps. Yes, sort of. We've seen there the trees in different countries. Many of us know that the Japanese really do love their cherry trees. They are the origin. China and Japan is the origin of these cherry trees, and they revere them. It would be true to say. We a little bit closer to home than Japan. Kew Gardens has a very good set of the same trees that the Japanese grow, and I was over in Kew Gardens just right at the end of March, having a quick look. The Japanese variety tends to blossom a little bit earlier than ours do. And some of theirs were out.
There you go. We can't take you to Staveley Road today, sadly, for a live event, but we can take you to Kew. So we still reach those parts that other broadcasts can't reach. And I like that music. That was great. I'll have to check him out. Mr. Allen on the guitar there. I thought for a minute it was you playing that, Ian, but it's certainly a lot better than I could ever do.
I'm afraid I gave up playing the classical guitar some time ago.
A loss to the world, I'm sure. But talk about all that filming. I mean, amazing. Well, very good of you. And you are now you've become our international link. You're a master of international cyber communication as well.
Well, no, not quite. Perhaps I wish. But just keeping with the theme of the blossom itself, in Japan, unfortunately, along with most other countries around the world, the particular cherry blossom festivals have all been cancelled. But luckily, the timing is just not too bad for people to actually go and see. People are allowed to walk to the particular places where the cherry blossom is out. And the Japanese, of course, love to take photographs. And so we've been able to get some footage from Japan of the blossom in and around Tokyo this year. As I said, their blossom comes out slightly earlier than ours does. So this is footage from this year. We start in the mountains just outside Tokyo, where it's very peaceful, and we move through the pieces. You'll see we move into the very busy Tokyo in the city itself, where they still have very many trees.
That's lovely. It's very zen, isn't it? But it's happening now.
That's
So it's kind of now and zen.
oh dear.
But and the qualities, here's me all blurry. I'm only half a mile away from you in Chiswick, and the other side of the world, super 4K quality. And you just got that. That was a direct feed, was it?
No, that was something I pulled in. I pulled in earlier with not wishing to sort of push the technology too much.
Very good.
Of course, the timing, the time zones makes a difference, and so it's not possible to get live feeds from some places, at this time.
Well, still very impressive, and yet more to come.
We do indeed. One of the other places around the world, and there are several places around that have particular celebrations, but one of the other particular places is in Washington, DC, at the end of the Capitol, what they call the tidal basin, and they were given a lot of cherry trees by the Japanese and planted them, and they seem to have taken on the same sort of tradition of walking under the trees, taking the photographs, having picnics and so forth. And we've got some footage again. This is this year. This is just a couple of days ago. We've got some footage from Washington.
Great. Cherry blossom in Washington, D.C. and lovely, absolutely lovely. Now, I recall that last year the poetry competition was very popular, and we're going to replicate that this year. Even though we haven't got the live outdoor event, we still had the competition.
We did indeed, and that was run in advance of today, so that we could have the judging take place, and we could announce the winners of that competition. And again, Sally was on hand just a couple of days ago to record the announcing the winners, and I'll go over to her right now.
Well, if I had a drum, I'd be rolling it. I am absolutely delighted to be able to announce the 2021 winners of the Blossom Day W4 haiku and poem competition for children and young people. I should perhaps preface the announcement by saying how much the panel enjoyed reading over 50 poems, and a couple of comments from our panel, Lucy Chambers, who is very closely involved with the Chiswick Book Festival, commented that she loved the interesting imagery that the children used to describe nature, and how wonderful it was to get an insight into how children view the world through their poetry. Susan Lee Kerr, who was also on our panel, who is a very local haiku poet, commented that our young people have a passion for the environment and an impressive concern for our planet. She noted also the close observation and humour of the poems. So, with no further ado, we have 10 prize winners this year, and this year's winners are: the Year 2 poem winner is Ariana with Fairies in Spring. The Year 5 poem winner is Adia with a poem called Alive. We have a number of poem winners from Year 6. Amber with The Giants We Can Be. Michael with A Rubbish Poem. Rosita with Our Dying Planet. Alice, Dear Future Residents. Egrata, Dear Earth. Madison, You Took Me Away. Martha, The Years Fly By. Okay. And this year's haiku winner is Florence with The Seasons of Japan haiku. We also have some highly commended entries, 2 highly commended poems: Martha, Problems, Donna, From My Eyes, and 3 highly commended haiku by Donal, Lily, and Owen, each of whom wrote a Seasons of Japan haiku. The prizes will be books of nature poetry, and we will be in contact with the winners and their schools to organise delivery of those. So may I conclude by congratulating and thank all of the entrants to the competition this year, and to say what a privilege it's been to develop a relationship and see what our blossoming poets are capable of. Thank you all very much.
And thanks to Sally for that, as ever. I know very little about poetry, I'm ashamed to say, and I don't even know how to pronounce it. How do you pronounce it, Ian?
Haiku.
Bless you. So I had to put that in.
You did.
I'll forgive you. For those of you who have just tuned in, or indeed have had to tune out, this whole program, including the next 3 items, we are coming to a short close, or a closure shortly, is going to be up on the Blossom Day website after a bit of editing and technical stuff. So you will be able to refer it to your friends, in particular the details of some of the clips, including what we're coming up with next.
Indeed. We were fortunate this year to be able to run a haiku workshop. So pulling in the Japanese connection again. We had a lady, Ilyana Stoyanova, from I'm reading the name, make sure I get it right, from the British Haiku Society, who yesterday ran a workshop for us, and there were a number of participants there, and she gave an extremely good introduction and explanation of the art of haiku, which of course is more complex than than we might wish it to be. There's a depth to the whole thing, and here we recorded her giving us the background to haiku, some of the history of it, and explaining some of the finer points.
So what is haiku and how it started? It has a very interesting history. It started back in medieval Japan as a starting verse in very long collaborative linked verses. It was in the imperial courts, and they had these literally games to entertain the nobility and the emperor. And only the best poets were asked to write the starting 3 lines called haiku. And gradually over the years and centuries, those starting lines were collected because they were much better than the rest of it. And by the time one of the first recognized haiku masters, Basho, came in, I think, 14th or 15th century. Already haiku was established as a genre without having the name haiku. The name haiku came later on by another haiku master, Shiki, in the 19th century, and he coined the term haiku, and it comes from 2 parts, hai and ku. Hai means amusement, game, and ku is poem or phrase. And he combined these 2 words into haiku. And we have ever since seen a great development into the genre. We have modern haiku now, along with the traditional one, which started centuries ago. When we talk about haiku, we have to be aware that it's a Japanese style poetry, and traditionally it was written in 1 long line, divided into 3 parts. The first part had not syllables. In Japanese language, they are called units, on. And these vocal units, they are very, very different to our syllables. So this is one of those misconceptions. People think that if it's not 575, we write it in 3 lines because we have a different punctuation to the Japanese language. And to distinguish the 3 parts, we write them in 3 lines. With the Japanese language, there are internal pauses in between, and when they read it, they know where to stop and think and then go into the next part. I can give you an example just to get an idea of the difference between on and syllable. For instance, the Japanese city Nagasaki, you have 4 on, Nagasaki. In English, it is the same, 4 syllables, Nagasaki. However, let's talk about Tokyo. Tokyo in Japanese language has 4 on, to, o, because it's a long o, ky is another unit, and then the o, so it's 4 on. In English, we say Tokyo, which is 2 syllables. So it is very different when you start comparing languages, and basically the basic rule for writing haiku, not just in English, but in any Western language, is to try to make it short and to keep short line, long line, short line, not to count syllables, because I think especially for novices, they say, oh, it's a good mental exercise, you have to keep the form. Actually, it makes it very, very difficult because you start counting syllables instead of thinking about the structure of the haiku and the images you want to paint with your words. Because in the end, haiku is like photography with words. We see something, it captures our attention, and we put it into words. It's this unique little moment which the writer captures, he puts it into words, and it's out there for the reader to read it, to understand it, to associate with it. A good haiku usually has something to do with our senses. We can sense it, we smell it, we see it, we hear it. So this is a very, very important quality of haiku. So back to the differences of the languages. Haiku in English and in modern Western languages usually has two parts. A long part, I mean, if we look at the, not just the lines, but the haiku as a whole. The short part, so it's a phrase and fragment. The fragment is the short part and the phrase is the long part. And when you think about the 3 lines, you can have the fragment as a first line, and then the phrase will be second and third line, where you explain and make a connection with the first line, with the fragment. Or you can have the phrase first and second line, and then the fragment finishes off and makes the connection with the other 3 lines. There are different haiku techniques. You can make associations. You can juxtapose images by using cleverly your words. You can just describe things, which is called shasei in Japanese, which is literally like a sketch from nature. Some of the most beautiful haiku are shasei. You are just writing what you see, and at first glance, it's very simple. You just think, okay, he or she, they're talking about these beautiful trees in the park and the sun and the birds. But once you read it a few times, you understand that there is something hidden. There is an underlay. The writer might be talking about their own feelings, and he or she, they make a connection to nature. And it becomes really, really beautiful. And also, it's very interesting because sometimes when you have one haiku and different people read it, they can read it in a different way and understand it differently. And this is the beauty of haiku. You give to people with very few words quite a lot of food for thought, really.
Wow, that really was food for thought. That was very interesting. That was Hyana Stoyanova from the British Haiku Society. Photography with words. I mean, marvelous, marvelous stuff. And it's true that brevity, as well as being the soul of wit, is the essence of direct communication, but it's not easy.
It's not easy at all. But I think that was an extremely good explanation of the structure and framework. And many of the things that people are trying, that haiku poets are trying to bring to something. But it also, I think, it certainly expanded my understanding of what the whole thing was about. And I'm certainly interested enough to go a bit further and start to dig into it. Whether I'll learn Japanese, I'm not so sure.
Yes. But sadly, we've taken up quite a lot of everybody's time, and thanks very much for anyone who's watched this far. It's very much appreciated, and obviously to all our contributors, and particularly to you, Ian, for putting it all together. And we're coming into the final furlong.
We are indeed. We'd like to bring on now John Brownridge, who's another member of the committee, the Blossom Day W4 committee. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And
can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Great.
And we'd just like to, John, make some closing remarks about the day as it's gone and what we might hope to do in the future, given I think there's going to be a little bit of this, cross fingers, but
yes.
Over to you, John.
Well, thank you very much, Ian and Andy, for taking us on an amazing journey, really, from medieval Japan to the present day and around the world, from Chiswick to India, the Netherlands, to Germany, and then to present day Tokyo and Washington and back to Chiswick again. It's fascinating to hear all that, and to hear from former Mayor Paul Lynch and others who provided the historical context for that journey. We're very grateful, of course, to have had the support of the current Mayor, Councillor Tony Lukey, throughout the year. I have to say his tree planting skills are second to none, having witnessed it firsthand, and I'm sure we all enjoyed his contribution today. So thank you very much to you as well, Tony. Of course, if we plant trees and don't look after them, they're likely to die. So I want to thank as well our tree champions who've looked after the new saplings, particularly during last summer, the very dry days of last summer, and to the Hounslow Good Gym, who've been back, I think, three times now to help us maintain the tree pits and prevent bark damage, as Sally explained in her piece earlier. I'd like to add my congratulations as well to the winners of the haiku and poem competition. I also participated in the haiku workshop yesterday. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have to say my haiku wasn't very good, but I learned a lot in the process and discovered how difficult it is. It's a lot more than, 17 syllables, as Ileana explained. 17 syllables and 3 lines. It just really isn't that simple. So thank you as well to Ileana Stoyanova for leading that workshop for us. Back to the poetry competition. So the winning entries will be on our website in the next few days. Congratulations to all of them. Prizes will be on the way. And thank you also to our judging panel, led by Sally, supported by her husband John, Lucy Chambers from the Chiswick Book Festival, and local haiku expert, I should say, Susan Lee Kerr. Thank you very much to them as well. And so a final thank you really to fellow members of the Blossom Day W4 steering group. So that's Laura, Daniel, Ian, Lindsay, Karen, Councillor Sam Hearn, and of course to Sally, Malin, who we heard from earlier, who launched us all on this journey. So looking forward, if anyone wants to help us look after the trees or contribute to next year's Blossom Day in whatever form that takes, please get in touch via the website, blossomdayw4.org.uk, and let us know if you want to take part or how you could help us. And in the meantime, please come to Staveley Road and enjoy the blossom. I promise it's on its way. It is on its way very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And that about wraps it up really from us. I hope that it hasn't been too disappointing that we weren't able to have an event outside, but it's been a different kind of thing. And thanks, it has to be said, to Ian's technical genius, all the pre-recorded material will be available, as John was saying, on the website. So we'll be able to see little elements of it, send them to your friends, or tell them to link in and enjoy it for a period of time. Plus, of course, we're coming into Blossom Week. So in a lot of ways, this as a pre-presentation of the Blossom experience, hopefully is going to say to people, Staveley Road is the place to be. Now, if you think that Staveley Road is the place to be, the one thing you need is a song that features Staveley Road. And unfortunately, it fell to us, to Ian and myself, and Martin Scott on drums and vocals, Chris Jones on ukulele and vocals, and our good friend Alistair Dewar, who's also chair of the St. Michael's Players, on mandolin and vocals. And it was an English traditional song originally called Matty Groves that the Americans in Appalachia then changed to Shady Grove. And we thought we'll change the name of the group at the same time because it makes it easier. So thanks very much for watching. And Ian will introduce the song, which is Shady Grove by Shady Grove.
Shady Grove by Shady Grove, indeed. Recorded under strict social distancing, i.e. we did all our parts in our own homes, separated by several miles in some cases. But for your enjoyment and to play us out, here's Shady Grove. So goodbye from us. And
and thanks again for watching, if indeed you were watching. If not, your friends will be sending it to you shortly.
Thank you very much.
Cherry blossom in the spring, apples in the fall. If I can't be in the place I love, don't want no place at all. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove I know. On Staveley Road I saw my love, I'm bound for Shady Grove.
red as the blooming rose, eyes of the deepest brown. She's the darling of my heart, the prettiest girl in town. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove I know. On Staveley Road I saw my love, I'm bound for Shady Grove.
I wish my mandolin had strings made of golden twine, and every tune I'd play on it, I wish that girl were mine. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove I know. On Staveley Road I saw my love, I'm bound for Shady Grove.
I wish I had a real fine horse and carriage for to ride. Down Staveley Road then we would go, that pretty girl by my side. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove I know.